Hey guys, I'm John Setzler. Welcome back to Atlanta Grill Company. Today we're going to fire up the Alfa Wood Fired Oven and we're going to make a loaf of rustic Dutch oven bread. So let's get started. We're going to get started with our no-knead bread dough. I've got my water in a mixing bowl here, and I'm going to give you these ingredients measurements in the video description in weight and in volume. So I've got my water, and I'm just going to put my yeast in here, and I'm going to kind of mix that around a little bit. This water is room temperature, so it's not warm, it's not cold. I'm going to let my yeast dissolve in that water for about 10 minutes. And while that yeast is dissolving in the water, I've got my flour. I'm actually using bread flour here. I've just added my salt to it, and I'm just going to take a whisk and kind of whisk that salt into the flour. I'm using King Arthur bread flour for this recipe, but you can use all-purpose flour or bread flour or just whatever you've got on hand. And after my yeast has had time to dissolve, I'm going to work some of this flour in here just a little bit at a time and mix it in. I don't want to put it all in at once. It's a little hard to work that way, but we're just going to mix this in until I get all of the flour incorporated. And then you're going to end up with a really shaggy, and just call that a shaggy mess of dough. So what you're going to want to do here is just kind of wet your hands and get in here with your hands and make sure we'll get all that mixed up and combined where there's no dry flour left behind. You can do this in a mixer if you want to, but it's just as quick and easy to do it by hand. And when I get all that flour incorporated, what I'm going to do a few times here is just kind of fold it over itself and pat it back down. Fold it over itself a couple of times, and that looks good. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cover this bowl with saran wrap, and we're going to let this just do its thing at room temperature. In my case, we're going to go about 18 hours, but this can go, you know, probably 14 to 24 hours and be just fine. One of my favorite parts of cooking on this Alfa oven is just the process of firing it up. I get a nice fire going in here with my oak splits here in the middle of the oven, and once we get that going really nicely, we'll move it over to the left side. Okay, I've moved my fire over to the side, so we're going to put my Dutch oven in there with the lid to let that preheat. While we're getting our oven up to temperature, we're going to go ahead and have a look at this dough that we mixed up last night. This has been going for about 18 hours now, and you can see how it's puffed up and bubbly up on top. So what I want to do is I just want to turn that out here onto a floured work surface. And then I'm going to get some flour on my hands, and I want to shape this into a dough ball, but the first thing I want to do is fold it over itself just a couple of times, and what that's going to do is help with that gluten structure that we've been working on in this no-knead bread. So I'm just going to turn that and fold it under itself a couple of times where we get a nice dough ball with a fairly tight skin across the top. And we're just going to let this sit here like this. I'm going to sprinkle a little flour over the top of that, and then I'm just going to lay a towel across the top of it while we get our oven up to temp. Okay, we're about ready to cook, so I'm going to transfer my dough to a piece of parchment paper, and I am going to hit this guy with the lum and get a cut going across the top of that, and we're going to take that out and put it on the oven. Okay, I'm going to pull the Dutch oven out. This is a process that you want to happen kind of quickly, so I'm going to pull the lid, and we're going to use this parchment paper to set our loaf right down in that Dutch oven, just like that. We're going to put the lid back on it and put it back in the oven. And my oven's running about 500 degrees Fahrenheit. So we're going to put that in there for about 20 minutes. And I'm also spinning this oven every 5 or 6 minutes to where it gets even heat during this process as well. We've been going about 22 minutes here, and I think I'm about ready to go to the next stage, which means we're just going to pull the lid off. If you'll have a look at that, that's looking amazing in there. So I'm going to put that back in, and we're going to go for about another 15 minutes, and I'll spin it a few times as we go. Okay folks, after another 10 or 12 minutes here, this guy's ready. This loaf looks absolutely beautiful. So we're going to take it out, we're going to let it cool. Okay guys, I've given this thing time to cool, so I want to take it, let's slice this guy open and have a look. It smells amazing. Take a look at that. Looks absolutely delicious. My light here is not the greatest in the world, but this is something you're definitely going to want to give a try. Try it in your wood-fired oven. You can do this in your Kamado. You can do this in any grill you've got. So give it a try. Let me know what you think. Until next time, this is John Setzler with Atlanta Grill Company.